You're watching the PoliticIt Podcast.
Good evening and welcome to PoliticIt Podcast. I'm Senator John Johnson, and we've got Joseph Grenny with us from Other Side Academy and our old buddy Dave Owen. Nice to have you, Dave. Dave's been on the podcast several times and works with us some. But what I wanted to talk about is there's an article that came out in the Salt Lake Tribune today about the Other Side Academy. Let's talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, so this is a second of two articles. So the first that came out complained that we're exploiting people by running social enterprises rather than helping them recover from drug addiction. Today's is about that we yell at people. That we're tough on them, that we're demanding, that we also talk to employers when somebody relapses, just all manner of sinful activities. And so some of these things have tried to place the burden primarily on Dave DeRocher, our executive director, and kind of make it about him. But the central argument of the article is that this is a tough, difficult place and a lot of people fail.
Doesn't it kind of have to be tough? In that situation?
Joseph, tell them about the population that you guys focus on.
Yeah, so the average participant at the Other Side Academy has been arrested 25 times prior to coming. Most have been on an average of 6 to 8 different programs before and failed out of all of those. These are people that have lived in jail and on the streets. They've been to prison multiple times, for the most part, not everybody. But they come to us pretty darn broken. And the average person's been addicted to drugs for 10, 20, 30 years prior to coming. Our belief is that two things are essential in helping somebody change their lives, and neither of them has anything to do with just getting off drugs. They've been sober before. They've been sober for a month, they've been sober for 6 months or a year at times. The real challenge is learning to live in a healthy community again. And we think that the central barrier to that is you need to practice living in a healthy community where people help you see yourself honestly. Sometimes that's loud conversation. We also believe that part of living in a healthy community is being self-reliant. We don't charge anybody anything to come. And the way the program supports itself is by running social enterprises. So the shock to me, the Tribune carefully sought out 4 different people who'd failed at the academy and left, and big surprise, blamed us. And that's the entire story. The entire story is giving a microphone to people who are struggling in their life, which I think is exploitation by itself, and taking advantage of the fact that they're feeling like that and need somebody else to make responsible for it. So yeah, we yelled at them. Yeah, we told them things like, if you leave, you might die. And apparently the Tribune's not happy with that.
Well, I think you have a good point to make there, Joseph. How many funerals have you attended from former?
We know that every day is life or death. We've had over 40 students die in the last decade.
That have left.
Yeah, so these are people that have been through part of the program, left unsuccessfully, and then went out, and what happened is what happens frequently with this challenge. And
a lot of them are drug overdoses then, or
all of them are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I can say, that's not a commentary, nor would it be of another treatment program.
Right.
It's not a commentary about the treatment program. It's a commentary about the disease.
Right.
We lose right around, 100,000 people a year right now to drug overdose nationally. And Utah is right up among, we're in the upper percentiles in terms of numbers. And so it is it is a chronic, progressive, and fatal disease if left untreated.
Well, it's not surprising that they could find a few that didn't pan out, right?
Yeah, and the terrible thing about how the article is done is it makes it sound as though some of the things the students complained about are things that were surprises. So prior to anybody coming to the Other Side Academy, they stay for 2 weeks, so they get to get the get down really clearly. They understand that we ask them to be frank and honest with their peers, to let them understand how their behavior affects other people so they can learn to live better in a community. They have to learn how to work cooperatively. So they're with us for a couple of weeks, and then they get accepted. And then when they leave unsuccessfully and complain about the very things that they were oriented toward in those first 2 weeks, it's kind of disingenuous, but that's okay. I don't want to badmouth anybody that's left unsuccessfully. Those are the people we love. Those are the people that we're here to serve. It's when a media source exploits that to try to arouse some emotion. One of the most despicable things in the article from my point of view is they cite a statistic and make it sound as though it's a failure. They say, and we have this on our website, that only 40% of the people that walk through our doors make a lasting change to being drug-free, crime-free, and employed. Only 40%. That is a tragic number. And we talk all the time about the other 60% and how we can help them. What they're not doing is sharing the comparative statistics. No number is meaningful unless you have something to lay alongside it.
Right.
And so how are the other treatment providers doing? We don't know, because none of them publish statistics.
Nobody publishes.
Not a single one. And we've been asking for this for a decade. And we've frankly told them, look, if it turns out you're getting a 60% success rate, we'll change everything we're doing starting tomorrow. The best evidence on the traditional treatment providers is that their success rate is about 5%. If that's true, ours is 8 times better than that.
Right.
Are we satisfied with 40%? Absolutely not.
And if I can jump in, those other treatment centers are not working with the population that we call it TOSA for short, that they are working with. It's an extremely challenging group of people. And so for them to leave graduated with a full-time job, which they do, is really not much.
So everyone that leaves has a full-time job when they leave?
100%. So, and that's, again, one of the pieces where you really have to have a narrow point of view, put a microscope on something to make it sound horrific. So one of the complaints in the article was that a student said that we'd help them get a job, got him placed. 100% of our students get jobs when they leave. And we'll talk in a moment about why that's the case. But part of that is a trust we have with the employers. The employers know that if it looks like this person is going to put their workplace at risk, we're going to let them know. Students know this in advance. And so this person relapses, we let the employer know, and then they act offended that we've done what we told them that we were going to do to begin with. What the Tribune
So that's part of what they
deal.
complain about is that
Yeah.
you told their employer that.
Let me jump in real quick with a couple of things. One is I've talked to you about having my friend who's an addiction medicine doc come on sometime. We'll have to do a podcast. I always tell him that his world is like being a Major League Baseball player. If you can go 1 for 3, you end up in the Hall of Fame. These guys are batting .400. That's incredible. And it's incredible with the population they are serving in particular. And the thing that the Tribune, and I'm going to, because this was my role here, was to try to manage that situation. And in our responses, and John, I hope you guys will post this on PoliticIt. In our responses, they talked about the fact that they've worked for, 20 years to build relationships with employers. And the employers can count on their representation. This guy's making progress. He's doing a good job, or this woman. And therefore, if they didn't report a lapse,
then you would lose that trust.
Then you would lose that trust and the door would close. Do you know how hard it is for a convicted felon to get a job? And I asked one of the reporters at the Tribune when we were talking about the story, I said, did you ever stop to ask yourself how somebody with 6 or 7 felonies had a job? They never bring that up in the story. And then the other one is, one of them said they threatened to call my parole officer. Or they were, well, again, I've learned that you guys have developed a relationship with AP&P, Adult Probation and Parole, over the years. And they rely on representations. And if these guys don't report something like that, then they're, again, going to lose confidence, and that door will close for the people coming behind.
Yeah, a necessary part of an addict's life is deception, manipulation, obfuscation, secrets. That's what life is all about.
Right.
We're the exact opposite. And people know when they come in that we're radically honest. And not just us with them, but also them with each other. The whole population holds each other accountable. We haven't had a single dirty drug test as administered by Adult Probation and Parole in 11 years. Not one.
Wow.
We have a house full of 150 former drug addicts and felons, and we don't have dirty drug tests. Why? Because people are radically honest with each other. And that hurts sometimes when you don't want the honesty. It's difficult. And for some reason, the Tribune seems to think that's scandalous.
And these guys aren't the guards running herd on this group of people. That group of people is working together, and that dynamic is internal to that community. So they're the ones that are enforcing the rules and bringing the peer pressure.
Right.
Back on the employer issue of note as well. These employers, as Dave was mentioning, wouldn't have any interest in our students. Somebody was asking me the other day, why is it so hard to get employers to support people and give them second chances? And my response to him was, because they're crappy employees. because these are people that are probably going to be stealing from you. They're probably going to be showing up late to work. And so for every single story of this virtuous person coming out of prison that turns their life around, there's 99 stories of somebody who exploits the employer.
Right.
That's the typical
And the
scenario.
recidivism rates show that.
Now, our students are different. Employers line up to employ our graduates because they have developed over the 2.5 years at the Other Side Academy a tremendous work ethic. They work at our moving company. They work at the thrift stores. They work at the construction company.
So they're working at your
Absolutely.
facilities to start with.
And that's what funds the whole program. That's why they can stay for 2.5 years. Nobody in their right mind, and there is no academic paper published anywhere in the world that says if you've been shooting heroin for 20 years, going to a 30-day program is going to fix anything.
Right.
It's an insult to the concept, but that's the whole rehab industry. The rehab industry is designed based on a funding model, not based on a therapeutic outcome. We're different. And the reason is the students get to take responsibility for funding themselves. They produce the income that supports the program so they can stay as long as they need to stay in order to change. And once again, that seems offensive to the Tribune.
And the other difference about TOSA is that there's no Medicaid fraud going on because they don't take Medicaid. That's not why they're there. And on a lot of treatment centers, they're dependent on Medicaid.
Yeah, and so they stay the amount of time that Medicaid will pay.
And even private insurance won't pay for a 2.5-year program. They can't. I mean, we understand that. So they have to be self-sustaining, and they're doing it.
Well, you know, it almost seems obvious. Right?
It does seem obvious.
It should have seemed obvious.
Right, and so you say, well, what's the story about then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I was telling Dave on the way in that I was delighted about in the story, just absolutely thrilled about, is nowhere did they say you've got staff members using drugs in the house. You've got students sneaking drugs in the house. You have staff members sleeping with other students in the house. Or you've got people that are fraudulently billing Medicaid. None of that was in there. None of the stuff that really would have shaken the world up or should have shaken the world up was in there. Why? Because we have a
Because it was happening.
Yeah.
And I got news for you.
A radically honest
that
culture.
does happen. It does happen.
Yeah.
It happens routinely at most service providers.
And we also learned that, and Joseph, it's up to you whether you get more specific, but it was a communications director for another very large treatment program who was helping recruit the addicts that spoke in the story. So it was a rival, you're not going to say competitor,
Right.
a rival that actually helped generate the story.
And you know what would be fine with me is if that organization were willing to put comparative statistics out and say, here's how many people we brought through our front door last year, and here's how many 2-3 years later are drug-free.
And you guys and you guys publish these statistics.
Published it. We have
These
from
guys,
day one.
as they say, open the kimono.
Yeah.
Let's have those guys do the same thing and see what happens.
And sadly, the open kimono ain't pretty all the time. And, 40% is dissatisfying to us.
Yeah.
And we're constantly trying. In fact, we have a whole new intervention we're going to start in the next couple of months to try to improve that a little bit. And we'll continue to fight for it. But what's maddening to me is that somebody could go out and recruit 4 people who had left our program unsuccessfully, that's running a much larger program, rather than just saying, let's sit down and have a conversation about what works.
Right.
And the Tribune should have facilitated that.
Yeah, you kind of wonder. I guess it's an easy story to write. Right?
They want clicks.
Yeah.
They want clicks. They want salacious headlines. And it's too bad. I mean, it really is, because some of the people involved are very good, left to their own devices. But I think it is the management, the leadership of the Tribune that has decided to go this direction. Because there's nothing wrong with asking the questions. Now the questions they sent us, and hopefully we'll get that posted, were, have you stopped beating your wife yet?
Right.
Those kinds of questions.
Right.
But to ask the questions isn't a problem. But stick around and hear the story, the full answer, and publish it.
Well, and you expect if there's 60% that fail, right? Then it shouldn't be too hard to find 4 people.
No.
Yeah,
Right.
out there.
And especially when the 4 people are at some stage of drug addiction, hopefully recovered. But
Yeah. And is that what most of these 4 then were people that basically just got back on drugs?
Yeah. Yeah, and sadly, and again, we've had 40 plus die in the last decade that we've been doing this, and it is heartbreaking. And this is the fight that we're in, and we're going to continue to fight it. And I don't care if anybody wants to criticize us about things that would make a difference, but talking to us about yelling at somebody who's about to go do something impulsive that could cost them their life, I'm not going to apologize for that. We're not going to change that. Talking about having people work at a job while they're in our organization so that they can support themselves, contribute to a community, and learn to be a decent citizen, not going to apologize for that. And telling an employer who has our trust that somebody is going to put their workplace at risk, not going to apologize for that. What the advice I'd offer the Tribune is sex sells, violence sells, and crime sells. Why don't you go find some stuff that we're doing that has to do with those three categories? And It won't, because it just doesn't happen. And again, I would suggest to you, if they did that kind of investigative story on most any other treatment provider, they'd find drugs in the house, they'd find people sleeping around with each other, and they'd find crimes being committed. We don't have that. There's a reason.
Well, and I think part of the problem is that let's face it, I think people expect the government to pay for stuff like that, right? To pay for programs like that.
And we all know how that works.
And we know what the solution is, right? But you've got a program that is self-funding, right?
Yeah.
And that's an really interesting thing to think about. Right.
I can tell you, just taking it out of the Other Side Academy for a moment, and we've been advocates of this for 11 years now. If the state of Utah wanted to dramatically transform the entire rehab system, which frankly is corrupt right now, corrupt not because there's bad people in it. There are people that really deeply care. But it's a sick system because people are paid for activities, not outcomes. Because every organization is billing based on how many classes, how many hours of therapy, how many this, but not producing a result. And you imagine if Apple Computer was paid for how hard it worked to make your iPhone rather than how well the iPhone worked, you wouldn't have iPhones that work particularly well because they'd be able to bill you no matter what.
Right.
If the state of Utah passed a law that said we will no longer fund any program that does not publish statistics on every person that walks through the door for how many are drug-free, crime-free, and employed, if the state would just do that, it would transform the system.
Sounds like something we should be doing.
John,
this is a big year because we've got this going into the legislative session. We've got this huge hole in Medicaid right now, and
which I might say the Foundation for Government Accountability warned about for many years.
Right.
One of my clients.
Yeah. It's amazing. Well, we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back.
Thanks.
Tired of media bias? Frustrated by political noise? PoliticIt.com cuts through the clutter, giving you real facts, clear analysis, and unbiased insight on the issues that matter most. Stay informed, stay empowered. Whether it's elections, policy changes, or breaking news, we've got you covered. No spin, no agendas, just truth you can trust. Visit PoliticIt.com today because informed citizens shape the future. PoliticIt.com, where politics meets clarity.
Welcome back to PoliticIt. So let's talk, Joseph. Let's talk just a little bit about what you guys are doing with the Other Side Academy.
Well, we believe that the central challenge of helping people with long histories of crime and addiction, that's the population we serve. As I mentioned before, average of 25 arrests prior to coming. Most have been doing drugs for 10, 20, 30 years. That the primary challenge is helping people learn to live a different lifestyle. If I've been using fentanyl or heroin or cocaine or something for 25 years, my problem is no longer fentanyl, heroin, or cocaine. My problem is I've learned to live with that in my life.
Right.
I've become a liar. I've become a thief. I've become a manipulator. I've become a narcissist. It's all about impulsive, short-term thinking. That's hard to change. And it doesn't get fixed in a 30, 60, 90-day program. And it gets best fixed in community. I'll tell you just a short anecdote. You'd think that the problem is that people are jonesing for drugs, that I feel like I need heroin again, there's a physiological response. That's 10% of the problem. 90% of the problem is I haven't gotten up and worked at a job in 20 years. And so getting up in the morning at the same time, taking a shower, getting along with other people, solving a problem rather than getting into a fist fight. That's the real problem. And you
Finding other things to do with your time, right?
Completely, yeah. And so people stay at the Other Side Academy for 2, 3, 4 years. One of the most remarkable things that the Tribune doesn't write about is that when people finish their minimum stay, which is 2.5 years, they have an opportunity to either leave, so they could go back to the courts, they could say to the judge, I finished my time at the academy, now you have to forgive me of my outstanding sentences, and the judge would have to do it because that was the deal. Half of them turn around, come back and say, I want to stay another year.
Oh, wow.
They want to stay another year. And why?
Because they feel like there's structure there. They feel like they belong.
There's structure, there's purpose, there's people that they've started to help get better in their lives, and they feel like they want to contribute to that. And they stay because they love the community. And the reason is they're becoming a person that they admire, that they love for the first time. The first social enterprise we started was the Other Side Movers. It's now, and has been for 10 years running, the #1 rated moving company in the entire state. You think to yourself, if a bunch of felons came to you and said, we want to come into your house and move your valuables for you, most people would not be jumping on that bandwagon. Right. But they call us all the time. We have thousands of 5-star reviews. Why? Because we're a culture of accountability. Because if somebody is lazy or is careless on the moving company, we're radically honest with them. Their peers are going to let them know that that's not how we act here, and that's how people change. We change based on social sanction. I would be a lazy bum that never brushed or flossed my teeth if it weren't for my mom or dad or other people letting me know they wouldn't put up with that from me.
Right.
That's what the Academy does.
That's fantastic. So we're about out of time. So why don't you just make a final pitch?
Well, happy to do it. What I'd like to do is challenge the media to write the story that it should have written. The Tribune should have written a story about how the entire sector is underperforming. The real scandal is that we have a system that's consuming hundreds of millions, billions of dollars in the state of Utah that's supposed to help people become drug-free, crime-free, and employed, and nobody has any idea how well it's working or how poorly. We challenge the Tribune to write that story, to demand that Odyssey House, that the Road Home, that First Step House, that all of the major providers in the state be required to declare how many people came in their door and how many left drug-free, crime-free, and employed. And I commit to you right now publicly on this podcast that if we find that somebody is doing it far better than us, we'll change tomorrow.
About what you're doing.
We'll do it however they're doing it that's working better. We don't care to defend our techniques. What we care is how many people get to be drug-free, crime-free, and employed.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Glad to meet you.
We'll see you guys next week.